The Knicks out-Pacer the Pacers. The Wolves out-Thunder the Thunder. Human sacrifice. Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. Matt and Haize are here to help us make sense of a wild weekend of NBA playoff games. Good luck today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And I have two of the best with me as always from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network. It's Matt Moore. Matt.
Karl-Anthony Towns had a moment. He finally had a moment. And where are we at with Towns? Is he great? Is he terrible? Is he a loser? Is he a winner? Karl-Anthony Towns is the most fascinating figure in the NBA today, Haize.
Yeah, we are going to talk much more about Cat in a moment. And Locked On Knicks has some interesting analogies between him and Julius Randle, so stay tuned from that. From the Locked On Bulls podcast, we've also got Haize. Haize, what do we do with Cat?
I pray that he can keep this up because that was an inspired Karl-Anthony Towns. Maybe he finally gets the motivation he needs to unlock that star-level talent that he has in there.
He extended his hand out and he told the entire Knicks roster, come with me if you want to live to see Game 5. Here's Locked On Knicks with their reaction to another crazy playoff comeback.
After Julius Randle, I never thought in my life I'd cover someone with just such high highs and lower lows that brings me to the brink of frustration and also just shaking your head laughing at how incredibly good at offensive basketball they are. And lo and behold, I have someone with Cat who at his best, I think is even better than Julius, and at his worst is somehow even more infuriating because the Cat starts this game he doesn't score the whole first quarter. We mentioned just 4 points through 3 quarters, and then you fast forward to the third quarter. You mentioned fourth quarter, excuse me. You mentioned the threes. First one comes off a Josh Hart offensive rebound, then 4 out, empty side drive against the ISO Turner, spin layup Turner, zero answer. Pushes off a rebound, hits DeLon Wright on a laser for a layup, 7-foot point guard, and then the 3 over Pascal and Turner, which just I've said this a million times, but it is just one of the great playoff shots in recent Knicks playoff history. There is a very short list of guys who make that, and he scores 20 points in 7 minutes all told.
That 3 over both Turner and Pascal was insane. Because he didn't even have to do that. He could have just pulled up on Turner. He waited for the screen that brought Siakam over and then decided to pull up on both of them. Insane. All right, here's a question I'm going to be asking all show long. What am I supposed to do with all of this? You said, Matt, that Cat had a moment. Was it a one shining moment, Cat sort of thing? Was it something the Pacers did or didn't do? Did the Knicks find something late that's going to carry over? Matt, help me.
I want to start with he didn't even have to do that. Is going to go on Cat's basketball epitaph. That's like that's on the basketball tombstone of Karl-Anthony Towns. He didn't even have to do that. Cat was amazing. He deserves a lot of credit here. I want good things for Cat, and I want to believe in him. He's one of those players that's just good enough to think maybe he could, but he probably won't. I will say I am unmoved by this win by the Knicks. Pacers shoot 5 of 24 from 3. Hey, they've gotten good variance from the Celtics. This can happen. That's sports. They were better without Jalen Brunson by a pretty wide margin. Jalen Brunson's not going to get in foul trouble next game, so it's going to be back to dribble, grift. And when you do that, the Pacers are going to get the edge. The Pacers have lost game 3 in all of their both of their previous playoff series, and now this one, Haize, they responded in game 4. This was a weird, interesting, fun, feel-good moment for the Knicks that will be short-lived as I expect the Pacers to finish this thing out.
I mean, listen, the Knicks have to win game 4, right? I think we all understand that. And you're right. The Pacers usually come out in game 4 and they come out for blood. If the New York Knicks have been in these games more than I think people have given them credit for in their losses. So I'm not going to count the Knicks out quite yet. I think this was an important win. This was maybe a momentum changing win for them to get a little bit of momentum there and feel good. And maybe they come out in game form, but they're going to have to really be focused on kill, to quote our boy
kill.
If they want to really truly get back into the series. As of right now, they've just made it it's still more than likely going to be a gentleman's sweep. But if they can come out in game 4 with some fire and figure it out, I would go back to, okay, now we have a series. Now it could go to any team, but they have to win game 4.
So Tibbs makes a lineup change. He inserts Mitchell Robinson into the starting lineup in place of Josh Hart. Josh Hart huge with the rebounds down the stretch. Tibbs actually experimented with a lot of different lineups in this game. Haize, did you like the changes? Is it too little too late? Locked On Knicks still wants Deuce McBride with Karl-Anthony Towns instead of Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's too little too late. I mean, you're still in the series. If you would have lost game 3, yeah, it would have been too little too late. But at this point, you won a game. Not that necessarily that your changes are the biggest reason why you won that game. It took Karl-Anthony Towns magic down the stretch to make that happen. But yeah, keep experimenting, keep trying different things, keep trying different looks, because the Pacers seem like they've had your number as far as just being able to just not go away. And so you need to find whatever gives you that edge. If this lineup change is that, then great. But game 4 is going to tell a lot for me.
I cracked up when I saw this. You know what the best lineup was for the Knicks in game 3? It was the original starting lineup.
That is hilarious.
They were +9 with Anunoby, Towns, Hart, Brunson, and Bridges. That was their best lineup in game 3.
And so, I think I mentioned in the last episode on Friday that they were a -68 for the playoffs. So
yeah. So you want to know what I actually think that probably indicates is that the problem is more about the Knicks are able to be successful in stagger minutes versus the Pacers, but struggle versus in those initial starting minutes, except the worst lineup for the Pacers yesterday was their starting lineup as a -6. So Carlisle, I think, got caught up a little bit in this game. I think Carlisle got a little too deep into the bag where he was pulling out various, he's played a lot of weird people in the series. Tony Bradley, right? He's going to Ben Shepherd a lot, and Shepherd's been really good for them. I think they've got to kind of get back to base process in game 4 and sell down like a little bit. That doesn't necessarily mean playing the starters more, just like maybe the rotations, getting them a little bit more simplified. There's been a lot of in, out, and I wonder if some of that gets a little bit simplified in game 4.
All right, let's flip it and hear from Locked On Pacers host Tony East and see if he agrees with you, Matt. He breaks down how the comeback kids got a taste of their own medicine.
The story of this game starts in the third quarter. Pacers are up 20 in the first half. The building was rocking after a Tyrese Haliburton jam in transition. Their biggest lead of the game. They were riding high. Up 13 going into the third quarter, up 15 late in the third quarter. That is when catastrophe hit them. This bench group to close the third. Haliburton goes out for Andrew Nembhard with 2:40 to go. Pacers don't have either of their stars on the floor. This has worked for them before, right? The idea being that the starting group can pull them back late in the game. This time, that group with no stars was dreadful. That stretch was killer. Pacers offense in that time really stalled. That end of quarter stretch was huge. The Knicks went into the fourth with momentum. Now, you do wonder if they don't have the same fastball from the starters, should they have tried to hit a little bit harder in that stretch process-wise, given that the resources were different. They did not, and it killed them.
All right, so Tony East does seem to agree with you there, Matt, that Rick Carlisle getting a little too cute with the lineup. Coming up, we're going to talk about OKC taking a 42-point beatdown in Game 3 of their series. But for now, Haize, can you tell me which one of these losses, OKC's clock cleansing or the Pacers letting go of the rope, tells you more about how the rest of this series, rest of their respective series, will go?
Honestly, I don't know if I feel comfortable with either telling us telling us the rest of the way that the series will go. I think, you're bound to have a letdown at some point. And the Thunder doing that in Game 3, it is shocking at the way that they lost that game, but I don't know if it really changes my thought process on the series overall. The New York Knicks one, maybe that's the one that I'd pick, mainly because just the Knicks and the fact that they have been in those games, like I said a little bit earlier, they've been in the games more than they've been out of it. They've been very close. If they're able, whether it's Karl-Anthony Towns magic or whatever else it is that keeps them in that, maybe that tells me more about the rest of the way the series is going. I just don't feel really confident in either one of those, to be honest with you.
I'll go OKC. I think that we overreacted to games 1 and 2 by the Thunder, and we thought that the Wolves were garbage. There was a lot of like, this is such a terror. Like there was conversations of like, they have to blow this up 2 straight years of this in the Western Conference Finals. And I'm like, the rest of you didn't even make the conference finals. What are you doing? So I think that the Wolves can get another game. So for that reason, I'm taking OKC's clock clean being a little bit more indicative because they're not as dominant as we may have thought previously.
All right, coming up on Locked On NBA, we'll flip that question. Which of these wins is more telling? We'll dig deeper into the OKC Minnesota series, and we'll talk a little bit more about this Pacers-Knicks series, including a return for the Pacers. Breaking news here from Shams Charania, a return for the Pacers that could be massive. That's all coming up on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder to yourself, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center with all of your accounts, your investments, and your spending in one place so that you can go beyond just managing your money to start actually building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on streaming services, and spoiler alert, it was a ton. Now I budget smarter, I save more, and the best part is I don't have to use multiple apps. I just use Monarch to check my finances, track my spending, and plan out my long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We got a tweet here from Shams Charania. Pops freed. Tyrese Haliburton's father, John, will be allowed to attend Pacers home games in a suite beginning with Tuesday's pivotal Game 4 against the Knicks. Sources tell ESPN. John Haliburton missed 8 games following a confrontation with Giannis Antetokounmpo on April 29th. Matt, big deal, not a big deal?
Not a big deal. I don't think it's like this massive. It was like a one time. I didn't even really know that John was at games courtside until this one. He's not like John Morant's dad, where he makes himself the main character every 30 seconds. He's a different dude. So I don't think it's a big deal. I do find it funny that they're like, yeah, he's back in a suite far away from the court and not on the road. But yes, he's back in the building.
Now, Haize, before you answer, I think when we had this discussion around his confrontation with Giannis, I believe if my memory serves correct, you said you would have done the exact same thing as John Haliburton.
Absolutely. Probably worse. Honestly, probably worse. Like, you should have seen me when I was coaching my kids' freaking 5-year-old basketball team. They got mad at me because I ran a trap. Like, yeah, we're running plays out here. So, yeah, I would have got fired up. Like...
All right, so you like this move by the NBA, allowing him, or NBA and the Pacers, I guess this was sort of a joint decision to allow him back to games.
Yeah, I definitely like it. Like, he should be out there to be able to support his son. Putting him in the suite is perfect. Let him be away from the action. I just hope that he doesn't come back and now the Pacers start losing more games, because then what? What do you do at that point?
That's right.
Much like I said, I'd be worse as a dad, as a son, if we come back in the playoffs and we start losing and be like, Dad, you just probably need to stay at home.
You know, like tired is, I think, NBA players' dads starting beef with other players. Wired needs to be them getting into beef with the officials for all the grifting that occurs on the opposing team. Let's get some of that going on. Let's get John Haliburton versus the officials about Shai in the finals. Let's get that going.
Haliburton versus Foster. Put it on a poster. Here we go.
Oh, yes. That's excellent.
All right, the Wolves welcomed the Thunder's top defense into Minnesota on Saturday night and then proceeded to put it in a full body cast. 143-101, the final score. Now, you would think that after witnessing a team that couldn't shoot straight for the first 2 games score 143 points, the focus of Locked On Wolves would be on the offense. But Ben Beacon says, "Ha, you fool. It was the defensive adjustments that made all the difference." Here's Ben going deep into the weeds.
Timberwolves' aggression on the defensive end of the floor, to me, was the biggest difference. Instead of like truly putting 2 on the ball, blitzing the pick and roll consistently, they did a little bit of it. Instead of playing SGA straight up, which they did a lot of in the first 2 games, they gave gap help. The player that's closest to the ball is playing in the gap. So you're essentially playing him with 1.5 guys. It's what a lot of teams do to Anthony Edwards. And then the other thing was Jaden McDaniels having a lower pickup point. So while there were a couple of instances where they blitzed SGA out near half court, for the most part, Jaden McDaniels was picking SGA up later. If you pick him up so high, it gives him that many more opportunities to get his head and shoulders past you, hook you, and get you on his hip and keep you there. And then you're either going to foul him trying to get around the hook, or your whole defense is in rotation. So the lower pickup point, the mixing of coverages, and the gap help to at least limit the penetration that SGA is actually able to get. The Wolves really limited all of those opportunities for SGA, and he ended up scoring just 14 points on 13 shots.
Oh my God, I feel like I just got a lesson on NBA schematics from Professor Beacon. That was awesome. Haize, did the Wolves solve the league MVP?
If you want to solve it, you have to do it more than once, because once is lucky. You do it multiple times, then we maybe be able to talk about you solving things. Give SGA a chance to also adapt to this as well. I can't say solve it yet. It does look promising, but you do it again. Go out there and do it again. If you do it again, that's when I'll start having conversations on if you solve the MVP or not.
Haize had a tweet that talked about how they went under on 7 screens versus 8 in the first 2 games combined. I thought that was interesting. The pickup points I think is really important. This is an extremely important point. If you analyze Shai's game, the one thing that you will notice is his discomfort and unreliability on pull-up threes. He's actually an incredible catch and shoot 3-point shooter. He just never is off ball, so that doesn't happen a lot, especially in the playoffs. In the regular season, he shot 37.5% from 3. In the playoffs, he's at 29% from 3, Haize. 29% from 3-point range. If you play this scheme, that's the counter, is you're like, all right, if you're going to pick me up lower, then I'm just going to rise and fire. Like, you do that versus Haliburton, you do that versus Brunson, you do that versus, obviously, Steph, but any of these type of guards, they're just going to come off that screen and fire, or they're going to get to that spot when you drop, and that's where they're going to shoot from. Shai doesn't want to do that. And one of the other things I thought was interesting, and Beacon kind of mentioned this about the gap play, in game 1 and 2, their help that they were showing was lower in the court, so he could make these quick passes for easy 3-pointers. They waited until he got deeper and then brought the help from behind him so that when he tried to turn around to pass, the angle wasn't there. This is a really effective mechanism, and I'm very curious to see if Dags is going to be like, all right, let's try and get Shai off of some more off-screen action. I wonder if DHOs is going to be the mechanism against this, dribble handoffs, that's how they're going to do this. If you get him sweeping wide, it's much harder to go under these kind of mechanisms. And so I'm just going to be curious to see what Dags is going to bring to the table. But there are counters. They haven't solved Shai. But if you're going to build a defense, this was the one I expected in 1 and 2. Where's this been, Finch? What were you doing in games 1 and 2 is my question, because I thought this is what they were going to do from the start.
Well, so Matt, you mentioned he's great on catch and shoot threes. You say DHO might be an answer, is also an answer finding someone else who can initiate the offense and allow SGA to play off ball. Do they have that person that can do that?
Oh yeah, I mean J-Dub. Like J-Dub is pretty consistently at 5 assists on lower usage than he should really have in these playoffs. You can absolutely run him, and a lot of things is with their off-ball switching that the Wolves do, you're going to be in positions to get J-Dub on mismatches in terms of size and physicality because they have to play these smaller guys. And I think that's a great way to initiate this. Like, I would actually very much think that you can get Jalen Williams involved as the actual primary initiator to get that defense to have to adjust and then go back to Shai. I'm also the guy that thought J-Dub was going to win conference finals MVP though. So, I got a little bit more confidence in my guy.
All right, let's flip it to Locked On Thunder and the host there, Rylan Stiles, who sounds disgusted by what he saw on Saturday night.
It was the lazy passes. It was the dumb mistakes like traveling, like the 8-second violation with no ball pressure. How you get an 8-second call when nobody's pressuring the ball is just jarring, and it is a complete and total illustration of what this game was for Oklahoma City. The Wolves, to their credit, first to every loose ball, first to the long rebounds. They capitalized and forced broken plays, totally flipped the script on the Thunder in the sense of defensive physicality and effort. They forced OKC out of the paint. They forced them into uncomfortable looks from three, and it really hurt OKC's offense. And when you shoot yourself in the foot by missing the few open shots that you make, this is the story of the game.
All right, Haize, we did a more telling loss. What is the more telling win here? The Knicks' 20-point comeback or Minnesota's 40-point whomping of the Thunder?
The Knicks comeback, because I think the Knicks have, the point I keep making, they've been in these games more than people give them credit for. I think as long as the Knicks are able to play some semblance of solid defense with execution on offense, it's going to be difficult hiding Jalen Brunson as much as they need to. Jalen Brunson is also going to dribble the air out the ball at times, but I think this win here by the New York Knicks this is what they needed when they were back home in Madison Square Garden. So I'm going to give it to the Knicks here.
Yeah, I mean, if they get 5 of 25 from the Pacers from three, and Andrew Nembhard goes 2 of 9 from the field, and Karl-Anthony Towns steps up in a big playoff moment and leads the way without Jalen Brunson because Brunson can't dribble the air out of the ball, and DeLon Wright gives them extremely good minutes off of the bench. Oh, and Landry Shamet's a plus 12. Then the Knicks are in great shape. It's the Wolves. The Wolves are an actually legitimate title contender, unlike the other team. The Wolves are a serious threat. They've been good for months. We've talked about it. Again, I don't think you're beating OKC 3 out of 5 times or 4 times. I don't think that's happening. But I do think that Minnesota can push OKC a lot further. So I'm going to say that the Wolves whomping, it shows what they're capable of when they don't have the worst game plan imaginable, which is what they had in games 1 and 2.
It feels like all 3 of these games for Minnesota have been outlier games, just in different directions. Like game 1 and 2, outlier in terms of they couldn't shoot. And then in this, 143 points is insane, particularly on the league's top defense. If they win game 4, Matt, the Wolves win game 4, but they don't do it in outlier fashion. They do it in sort of a close game where they play generally how they played all season. Would that change your opinion of their ability to get back into the series and actually win it over OKC?
No, because OKC is going to blow them out in game 5 regardless. I don't care what they do in game 4. They're getting blown out in game 5. Just prepare for that. So then it's like you're right back in that Denver spot. You win game 4, they blow you out in game 5. You get to fight off the ledge in game 6 at home. And then you force a game 7, but then you're right back up against it with OKC at home, much like Denver did when they won by 40 versus the Nuggets in that game 7. Maybe the Wolves won't be as tired, but I just can't see you beating OKC 3 more times overall with 2 of them in OKC. They're too good. And their baseline performance, they have 61 double-digit wins this season. They're too good. I think Minnesota's great. They're too good. Like the ranking of these teams it's OKC, Minnesota, Indiana, and then the 4th dragon head with a tongue sticking out is the Knicks.
Hey,
his name was Bob. That's crazy. His name was his name. His name was Bob, man.
Haize, are you as down on their chances, on Minnesota's chances, as Matt is?
Yeah, I don't feel confident in either one of these teams that are down 2-1 right now coming back to win the series. I'd love to be surprised by it. And like I've said before, this is a playoff where anything is possible. I really do feel like that to expect the unexpected, but I think it would be, at this point, it's going to be patience in OKC, and that's probably the one that we deserve as well.
And it helps OKC that we've seen them do this before. We've seen them come back from one of these types of losses, despite them being a little bit younger than some of the previous, NBA title contenders. They've done this before. So we'll see what happens tonight. In Game 4, you can check out Locked On NBA Game Night for a full recap. It's on this feed. It's every game, every night. Coming up, what am I supposed to do with all of these comebacks? More comebacks than we've seen in the play-by-play era. I'll have a few stats, and then I'll just ask Matt and Haize what I'm supposed to do with all of these comebacks, plus a very interesting take from Locked On Mavericks about what they should do with that first overall selection. That's all ahead on Locked On NBA. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. All right, I promised some stats. Here we go. According to Kirthika Utaya Kumar at Kirthika U on X, great NBA stats follow, these playoffs have had 6 20-point comebacks. That's the most in the play-by-play era. That dates back to 1997. And here's one from our own Matt Moore at Hardwood Paroxysm on X. These playoffs have had the most 15-point or more comebacks since at least 2003. Very simple question that I've been asking all show. What am I supposed to do with all of these comebacks? What does this mean? Is this a fluke? Is it proof that we're in a simulation? Is it a product of the CBA? Matt, what are we dealing with here?
I wrote about this on Fanside today. I think Tom Thibodeau talked about after the game, talked about how pace and the 3-point variation is in part, I think, to do with it. I have another theory, Haize. The way that the game is played now, you can't run prevent offense at all. Like every single possession is either you've got the edge on them and you're leveraging it, or they're like, especially with the physicality in these playoffs, like they're attacking you. The Pacers from the 2-minute mark of the second quarter through the 10-minute mark of the fourth, that's when they erased that deficit of 20 points. The Pacers had an 87.9 offensive rating for one of the best offenses in basketball. The offenses just stall out. And if you're going to have a comeback, yes, obviously the other team has to stop scoring or you're just treading water. But the difference here is it's not like the Knicks shot the lights out and it was 150 to 130. It was like 130 to 80 to 90. And that difference to me is meaningful, is that I don't think with how the game is played, if you're not leveraging the defense on every possession, if you take that foot off the gas, especially I think with a team like the Pacers, you really tend to stall out. What I don't know what to make of it, Haize, is that the Knicks have 3 20-point comebacks in the playoffs. 3. That is the most outlier that ever outliered, and I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in because that many comebacks is crazy. I don't know if that really even speaks to the parity in the league or it just speaks to coaching. Like I think that like in these playoffs, coaching has really a lot of times, more times not been the difference, especially when you're looking at a team making comebacks, the game plan, or the players just in their ability to just not go away and just stay steady, right? That's what the Pacers have done throughout most of this playoffs when they've gone in comebacks. Is they just keep playing their game. They just let it come to them. They keep playing their game, but they're just well thought out, really good game plans that have been the thing. So if anything else, I think I'll look to the game planning and the coaches, because it seems like this has really been a playoffs where they're not going to get a lot of the accolades, but coaching more times than not has really made a lot of difference in these.
So we did 15-point comebacks. We did 20-point comebacks. I will note that no team in this postseason has come back from 30 points down, including the Thunder, who lost by 40+. So that's the strategy, right? That's the key. You just go up by 30, and you got the thing in the bag. All right, let's shift our focus from the. Go ahead, Matt. You got something on that?
Doug. Don't go down by 30.
It's not happen.
It's not Ben Beacon, but it'll do for analysis for now. All right, let's shift our focus from the playoffs to the NBA draft. Right now, all of our Locked On hosts are participating in the Locked On NBA mock draft that will come out in June, and we've already had a massive trade. I'm working to see if I can get it unembargoed and talk about it before it releases in June. So stay tuned for that on a future episode. But until then, Locked On Mavs host Nick Angstad is interested in a trade, but not for the first overall pick. To blow it up and build around a superstar or live in 2 timelines, that's the question. Here's the answer from Nick.
The Mavs should blow it up, though. They should blow it up. They should trade Anthony Davis and Kyrie. They should trade their pieces off, and they should go for full rebuild. That's what you should do with a young superstar like Cooper Flagg coming into the fold, because you start to look at some of the examples in the past of teams that went with the 2 timeline approach, and it's very difficult to navigate. In the cases where it did work, it kind of took like an act of God for them to work at a certain point. It took a Victor Wembanyama, it took a LeBron James and Chris Bosh, it took a Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and an incredible cap flexibility. It took, whatever happened to the Warriors in 2022. It takes a lot. It is possible, but the smart money would say to blow it up and to just rebuild around your star, because then you end up like what the Thunder are doing right now.
So I texted Nick and told him that we were going to run this clip, and he said the commenters did not like that take. Matt, what do you think about the take? Can the Mavs be one of the teams to make two timelines work, or do you agree with Nick that they should play it safe and build around Cooper right now?
They're not going anywhere with this build anyway. Like when they made the trade, we were like, there's so many things that are dumb about this. But among them, let's just remove the Luka thing, which that's a pretty big thing to remove. But let's remove the Luka thing. You want to build a team with Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis? That's your model for winning a championship? Is that combo? How are they going to be available? AD has never been the best player on a championship team. Not once has he been the best player on a championship team. Kyrie's never been the best player on a championship team. What are you doing? What kills me with this the most, Haize, is they have such a great opportunity. If you go out there with Anthony Davis and you're like, hey, if you've got assets and there's another team that wants those assets, like players, and you want to add AD and they'll give us draft picks and young guys, we can work a three-way deal. There's so many things they could do with Gafford, AD, PJ Washington. There's so many assets they could get to reconfigure here, but they're going to blow it instead trying to win now with Anthony Davis as their best player, and they're going to stagnate Cooper Flagg, which is bad for him. The trade was the dumbest move in NBA history, and they just keep making bad ones. I just would like to see the Mavs do one smart thing at some point, but we still seem to be waiting on that.
Okay. I agree with you. I want to be clear. Let me play devil's advocate for a second, right? Kyrie Irving has one more year left on his contract, right? So he's done after this year anyway. It is what it is. We don't even know how much he's going to play this year. Anthony Davis, the two timeline thing, I get that Cooper Flagg should be the focus of this team. You have young pieces here that you can start building. You get more assets. You let Anthony Davis rebuild his trade value maybe for one more season. You move him in the summer of 26, where it seems like there's going to be a lot of movement anyway. I don't know if they necessarily have to make the pull the trigger right now to where they need to move. They need to trade everybody. I do think that it does eventually need to happen, but there's a case of saying that naturally that's probably that two timeline thing is going to end naturally here in a second anyway. Maybe.
Mark Stein writing at his Substack. Quote, there have been rumbles all season that the Mavericks, either using that option as the starting point for an extension or based on an entirely new deal, have been hoping to re-secure Irving under contract for the next 3 seasons in the same annual ballpark of $40 million.
Okay, so this is, okay, I try to add some logic. Nico's going to Nico.
Well, this is what happens when you play devil's advocate in favor of Nico Harrison is that you end up in hell.
Yeah, exactly.
That's your only location is ending up in hell. All right. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. Go check out that episode of Locked On Mavericks. Very interesting. He dives deep into all of those scenarios where the two timelines actually worked and explains it. So very interesting. Thanks to Matt and Haize for their expertise every day. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NBA Big Board Show. NBA draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Enjoy our beautiful game tonight. Be kind to each other. And we're going to see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.